first, I want to make sure that you have pen and paper handy because our speaker today is going to be asking you some questions about themes in your very own work in progress. So now I would love to introduce DJ Adamson. She received awards for her fiction, her Lily and Dove mystery series featuring amateur sleuth Lily and Dove. In addition, she was nominated in 2021 for a Clue Award for her suspense crime thriller, Into the Storm. She's going to talk about both of those in terms of theme today. Many of her psychological and suspense thrillers feature the paranormal. DJ is also the editor of Le Coeur de l'Artiste. I hope I didn't butcher that too badly.
No,
which is an online book review magazine. And she interviews authors on her website. So with a marketing background of many years, she also has been a teacher, which you're going to find right off the bat. She knows what she's talking about, and she's going to keep your wonderful attention all the way through today. She recently retired from teaching writing and literature at Glendale College. So first, I would like to ask everyone, as is our habit here, to turn off your cameras and make sure you're muted. That saves the bandwidth for Diane and her slideshow that she's going to show us here today. So without further ado, DJ Adamson.
that was a very nice introduction. Thank you, Karen. So good that even I would want to hear me. So thank you. Hopefully I'll equal up to it. I'm going to go to sharing my screen right away. And, of course, slide presentation. Oh, I can get there. Where is that stupid thing? It always is right underneath here. I'm going to take that off.
You got it. It's right there.
You see it?
Yes.
Slideshow. I want to go to slideshow from the beginning. See, I don't have students here, but thank you, whoever helped me. Usually when I was teaching during COVID, my students would go, no, professor, you need to do this, this, and this. So I'm going to talk about developing themes, plot, with your plot and character today. And I want to start first with telling you what I do a little bit with my writing and what I did today before starting out with this presentation. I taught goal writing to executives when I was working in business for sales and marketing. I was a vice president in commercial publishing with sales and marketing. And I used to teach goal writing, not only to my own staff, but to Hewlett Packard's president, to, I'm trying to think of some of the other old people that I did it to, taught them with goal writing. Before I ever start a project, I write goals for it. How many of you wrote goals for coming to this class today? Then how do you know what you want? And how do you know what you want to experience while it's going on? And what do you plan to use as a guideline? All of those are goals that are developed with projects. I wrote goals for this class. I wrote that what I wanted was I wanted to encourage you to think deeper about the theme and how you needed to add it to your craft in order to produce deeper meanings. Deeper meanings. Yeah, probably some of the best books written are ones we still think about. They're the ones we still think about. They are ones like Catcher in the Rye. There are ones like Lord of the Flies. They are like trying to think of the book titles right now. My mind instead. The Brontes. Even a romantic novel has us thinking, why are they great and why do they encourage us to add to our crafts the aspects of themes in order to create a deeper meaning is because great books cause us to think. Good books cause us to pick it up again really good books cause us to look at it differently. Good books are not always on the bestseller list, but good books are the ones we share with other friends saying, have you read this? It was really good. I just can't get it out of my mind. And why couldn't they get it out of their mind? It was because of themes. So I want to encourage you to think deeper about theme and how you might be able to add it to your craft and in your craft. Everybody wants to do plot today. Everybody wants to do twists. And oh my God, that was a really good twist at the end of that story. Plots are good plotting are good plotting mechanisms. But if there's not depth there, then the twist loses its effect on the reader. I wanted to encourage you to try something different by sharing some of my experiences in writing. If you have a piece of paper and you have a pen in your hand, I want you to put the pen in the hand that you normally write with. So if you're right-handed, I want you to put it in your left. If you're left-handed, put it in your right. Just for fun. I can't see if you're doing it. But try it. Try something different. Now write your name. How hard was it to write your name, something you've written all of your life? How hard was it to write without using the hand you usually write? That's doing something different, something that makes you feel uncomfortable. I want to encourage you to try this, to experience this. I will be as thorough as possible with the time constraints, but remind you after where to go for further explanation. Those are my guidelines. I not only want to give you information on theme, I want to give you examples as much as I can on it. I want to sharing my experience of what I've done or what I've learned. Not that I'm a best-selling novelist at all. I'm still learning craft. It's why I write. It's why I write, is to have craft. I want to encourage you to deconstruct books. I would love to write a Nora Roberts book. And what I love about her plot, she progressed to a plot when you read her series of books and deconstruct them. She progressed to a plot where she starts a story and within 3 pages ends it. And you think, oh my God, this is ended. How's she going to, is this a short story? And then she picks up again. And by the time she gets to the end of the book, she comes back to that ending. How did she do that? What made her think about doing that? And what other things does she talk about other than love and romance and heroism? I commit to taking what I learned through your comments. And hopefully you will write me your comments about what you liked about this presentation and what you didn't like, and integrate some of them in my next presentation, because I'm still learning every day as a learning aspect. I'm going to analyze here because I'm thinking. Plot, developing themes, plot, and character. So right now, just write down, if you're thinking about the book you're working on right now, or the story that you're working on right now, think what it is you wish to say to the reader. What is it you want to say to the reader? And this should not be more than a simple sentence. What is it you wish to say to your reader? Answering that question defines the major theme. What is it you wish to say to your reader? Because all good books say something other than just who killed the person. All good books, all great books, and there's many different levels of books. Those that are with us over time. Fill in themes to plot and carry. What kind of plot are you using to tell your story? Do you know the different kinds of plot? Send a request. Cancel. So what type of plot are you using? Are you overcoming the monster? Are you writing a rags to riches story? Are you doing a quest story? Rags to riches might be The Great Gatsby. It definitely, I got my notes here. It definitely is Cinderella. All fairy tales are by rags to riches because everybody wants to be the king or the queen. Overcoming the monster, Star Wars. Hero's Journey, Star Wars. Quest. Quest was a great, the Odyssey. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Napoleon. The new movie Napoleon has a quest storyline. If you know what kind of plot you're writing, it also can help you decide what your major theme is. So right now, write down what your major theme for the story you're writing is. What is your major theme? And don't overthink these things. Listen to your muse. Because that creative aspect of you, your mind's eye, knows what it's doing. You just may not be listening well. So what is your major theme? And then after that, I want you to write down what are your minor themes to that major theme. All really good stories, all stories with strength, have at least 3, 4, sometimes 5 or 6. I could think of Kurt Vonnegut having 5 or 6 different themes in some of his work. Minor themes in the work. It generally has only one major theme. It's what the author wanted to say in its writing. So what is your major theme? Write it down now. And from that major theme, what are your minor themes? Do you know them? And if you do, they should be up on your wall where you can see them when you're writing. So you don't forget what it is you're really wanting to tell the reader and how you're planning to tell. So let's talk about developing themes. Let's do a quiz. I like quizzes. It's almost like teaching school again. Major theme. In one word, when thinking of The Wizard of Oz, and hopefully all of you know The Wizard of Oz, and if you don't, you should actually read it or watch the movie, because it is perfect in plot. What is the major theme of The Wizard of Oz? One word. What plot type is it? And your plot type is how it's plotted to present those themes. So what's the plot type? The writer said, I'm going to write this kind of story. What kind of story was that? What major theme? What did he really want to say in this book? And then each character has a theme. And they are produced as the minor themes to represent that major theme. Dorothy and what she seeks to do in this story has a minor theme. Tin Man has a minor theme. Lion has a minor theme. The witches have minor themes that are going to be developed in the story. Write those down just to see if you know. I'm not going to give points for it, but just in case you wanted to know. Quiz answers. We'll just go on for fun. The plot theme is journey, hero's journey. A hero's journey is one where the character sets out wanting adventure, wanting some excitement in life, not thinking their life is substantial or motivating and or complete. And they want to set off in order to find that. And what they realize is that in the hero's journey, that there's no place like home. There's no place like home. That really is where the love of friends and family is what the hero's journey brings you to. And while you might want a life of adventure and exploration, you come to realize happiness is found in the love of those close to you. So, what is the overall major theme? Happiness. How many got that? Happiness is the major theme in The Wizard of Oz. Now the reader takes away those ruby red slippers clicking away, right? Click, click, no place like home, click, click, no place like home. But the actual character, the actual story talks all about happiness with each one of the characters, the major protagonists, the antagonists, etc. It's all about the seeking of happiness. So let's talk about that individual terms. The Scarecrow, he thinks he needs to have an intellectual ability in order to be happy. The Tin Man, he's very emotional because he wants a heart, because he thinks in order to feel love and to be happy, he needs a heart. The Lion, courage. He thinks he needs courage to be happy. The Wizard now twists that a little bit and offers us false hope to happiness. False hope to happiness. That by some sort of magic, we can gain happiness. And Dorothy has to learn that it can't be true. That false hope. The Witches, good and evil. Glinda, the good witch, tells us that if we're good and we follow the steps of good, we can be possibly happy. And the evil witch talks us only through evil, and that we get power. We feel happiness and control. And Dorothy, gratitude. Gratitude, happiness is in gratitude, as simple as food. Now, when you read or watch a movie like this, if you actually sit down and deconstruct it and what you thought the major theme was, and to go through what you see the minor themes of, then you're able to see that story in a whole different way. Kurt Vonnegut, when he wrote Slaughterhouse-5, I love Slaughterhouse-5. Not only did I teach it for years, but also it's great, and it's deconstructing of themes and outlines. Kurt Vonnegut said that you start a story as close to the end as you can. You start a story as close to the end as you can. And he says you can't see your life, you can't see a story unless you're looking at it from a different perspective. He gives aliens as his perspective to life in Slaughterhouse-5, which really makes it not only a great anti-war movie of World War II, and book of World War II, anti-war movie, but he brings in the aliens because from them, they see it also differently. We think that the world's going to end because of environmental problems and wars, and here he finds out that one of our aliens, one of our men in one of the spaceships pushed the wrong button, just blew your universe away. We never think there's outside forces that can control us at all. He brought us back to a perspective that it's not always inside our realm, that it's also outside of it. Read Slaughterhouse-5, it's great. Major and minor themes. Major and minor themes. What the writer wants to say. What do you want to tell your reader? What is high on your list of wanting to relate to another person? Your reader is that intimate sense of communication. I want to talk about this. I want you to be aware of this. I want to put this in a different way so that maybe you can see this. A major theme should be easily and universally understood by readers. It's not something they have to look for. Most really close readers can see it developing as they go along, but most, even the best of it, literary critics, and I have published a lot of literary criticism, we need to go back and deconstruct. Deconstruct meaning we have to take that novel apart. We have to take that story apart to see how it was put together. What the writer wants to say, the overall message of the story. One of the greatest books, and I used it a lot in my own writing, was Sarah Mungo's Blindness. Jose Saramago, Saramago. If you want to read a brilliant book, he's a Nobel Prize-winning writer. And some brilliant work on themes. Because he takes the one word blindness and he creates 5 different ways of looking at it. 3 major different ways of looking at it. Now, you may not see it in its first part because of style and getting used to his style and getting used to how he sets out the story. There's only one narrator in the whole book because the rest are all blind. So we can't really see what's going on when we do our first reading. But when we go back and do a close reading, we can see the other minor themes from his overall major theme of blindness. That tells us at the very beginning of the book that we see, we look, but we don't always observe. I think he's talking about literature here too. We see when we read, we look at it by chapter, etc., see that twist that's there, but we don't really observe how it was all put together. Minor themes sometimes are harder to come by. Sometimes they take close reading, but they are what imprint themselves psychologically to your reader in the reading. They are what sets in your mind after the book is done. They are what causes you to pick it up again. How often are you thinking of your themes? Are you merely outlining for your twists? Or are you constantly looking at theme? Because plot also develops. Discovering yours. Sometimes theme is just really simple. It's a crime, and some of the minor themes to the major theme that this is a book on crime is that crime doesn't pay, evil never wins, fact leads to truth, death, self-discovery. Sometimes the minor themes are very simple in a book, and we see them as we go along. These books are very entertaining, and we buy and read entertaining books. That's why we love Agatha Christie. We buy and we read entertaining books. Sometimes James Patterson doesn't develop major themes, but he's very entertaining, and we lick through his books like there's no tomorrow. In fact, a lot of my reviews say this author is very good. Cancel your weekend because you're not going to be able to put the book down. Now, someone will not put the book down. They'll finish it. They go, oh, my God, what an interesting twist. I'm always curious, how did they get there? I've got to go and deconstruct a good writer. And, man, there are a lot of good writers, far better than me. I'm one of those teach instead of do, I think. Protagonist. What is your protagonist's core need in your story? And how do you find it? Now, while I'm talking, and if you hear your muse say something, write it down. Write it down. Because things will come up into your mind as you're listening to me. So how to find it? Do a therapy session. How many of you actually sit with your character and talk to them before you even start writing? Or maybe Claire had a problem with that. Sounded like she was more of a pantser. Don't think I'm trying to categorize you, Claire. Sometimes it takes 6 chapters for me to stop, then go back and start outlining it and start having my therapy sessions with my characters. So I may pants it for the first few chapters, trying to get to the story that I actually want to tell. How do you find it? Do a therapy session with your protagonist. Meet them. And I don't care if you know the best friend. I don't care if you know what their favorite color is. Who cares? I want to know, what do they want? Dorothy wanted happiness. She didn't think she was happy because her life wasn't adventurous. What do they want? If you hear what they want, write it down now. And if you need to have your your protagonist's name there with you, put it there on top of your piece of paper. So bring them into the lecture. What is your protagonist's core need in the story? And that is, what do they want? And you should be telling that to your readers within the first 5 chapters, if not the first 3, or if not the first. What is it they want? Why do they want it? Why do they want this? Dorothy thinks that it's going to make life much better. She's going to think that it's going to, that when she gets up in the morning, she's going to have a whole new vision of life. It's going to bring her happiness. Why do they want it? Why does your protagonist want this core need? And then if you were sitting across the couch from me, I'd go, why don't you think you already have it? Why do you think you don't already have it? What will it give them if they reach this core need? What will it give them? These two are the hardest, I think. What are they willing to risk? What are they willing to risk? If it's a crime novel, are they willing to risk their own life? If it's a romance, are they willing to give up the life they've known for someone else? What are they willing to risk? And then, of course, who has stopped them from achieving it in the past? That's backstory. Was it a person or incident? So, if you read my Lillian Nove books, my first one is called Admit to Mayhem, what she wants is she wants to live life anew. She quit drinking, and she was able to quit drinking without any problem. But then, how does she take on life? How does she take on life when she's been drinking since the age of 12? And alcoholism is really all she's known. And why does she want it? It's because she realizes that self-medicating has done her no good. Didn't bring her the happiness and fulfillment that she wanted. And why doesn't she think she already has that happiness? Because she's not going anywhere in her life. She's still unhappy. That while she might self-medicate, she may have self-medicated most of her life. And in the book, she's 38. She may have self-medicated most of her life. It's never done anything for her life. And she thinks she thinks that if she reaches this core need, if she finds life anew, that it will bring her happiness, satisfaction. One of the major aspects of the theme is all about happiness. What is she willing to risk? She's willing to risk slipping. She's willing to risk taking on choices she's never taken on before and doing them differently, taking on contrary choices, doing it differently than she already has. And of course, who stops her from achieving it in the past? Well, she thinks a lot of people stopped achieving this in the past, and most of them are family. And most of them turns out to be one who is her mother, Talia. And she's also a prominent character in the book. I've done a lot of therapy with Lillian. And it's not always about the father with daughters. It's a lot about the mothers. And one of the minor themes in this book is a heavy mother-daughter relationship. And I take that into other family members as it goes on. And of course, there's always murder and mayhem because that's what's fun. Character analysis. So I want you to think right now, jot down yourself. Do a therapy sentence. What is your character's greatest fear? Misperception or apprehension about their world. And how did the character come about this misbelief? What's her greatest fear? You know, fear is one of the greatest emotions ever. We're all afraid to die. And we're afraid to die, I think, as soon as we're born. Fear is a great, great trigger. So what is your character's greatest fear? It's probably not spiders, although that can be one. It could be addiction. For Lillian, it's addiction. But she does realize in her books that she's addicted to other things. She's addicted to Coke and Pepsi and men and spiders and the darkness and fear. And she's addicted to many things. Just like some of you are addicted to reading. Some of you who buy books and just put them up on the shelf because you have to buy a book. You're addicted to the books, not necessarily the reading. For some people, it's addicted to quilt fabrics because they quilt. We all have addictions, and some of them are healthy. What is your character's greatest fear? What's her misperception or misapprehension about their world? How did the character come about that misbelief? Jot some notes down to yourself. What is your character's life goal? Not your life goal. But we can go to that therapy if you wish. But what is your character's life goal? What is your protagonist's life goal? People say, oh, I know my character really well. She's 38, she's single, who cares about those things? That's not who the person is internally. That's not what will cause their decision making. What is the character's life goal? And then especially if you're writing a series, what is the character's story goal? Their life goal and story goal are sometimes two different things. Life's goal reflects a major theme in the book. The character's story goal reflects the plot. And when we all write murder stories and crime and mayhem, and I throw in a little science fiction and paranormal every now and then, the story goal is usually in finding something out or coming about justice or character story goal. And Lillian is she's trying to write the world she's trying to solve a murder that's going on in all of her stories. So what three things does a character hold most dear in their life? Do you know? What three things does a character hold most dear in their life? Is it family? Is it becoming a bestseller they're writing? What do they hold the most dear in their life? Lillian's is a family. She feels like she hasn't had a family and she's been out on her own. And she ran away at 18. She doesn't feel like she has a family. What does she hold most dear in her life? She holds her sobriety dear in her life. That's definitely one of them. What are yours? Now, what three things would the character sacrifice to obtain their goal or any other threats? What would they sacrifice to obtain their goals? My Lillian is willing to sacrifice her sobriety. She will, in fact, she has a bottle of Absolute in her freezer, knowing that every day she has the choice to drink or not. Every day. So one of her things that she would sacrifice to obtain her goal is that she had to. She would sacrifice her sobriety. And that sounds like a really weird thing. It contrasts with her holding it most dear, her addictions. She'd sacrifice people not liking the way she does things. She would sacrifice all sorts of things she'd sacrifice. What are they? Listen to your character. We'll come back to some of this. I'm one of those then that comes back around. Antagonist. You're going to have this therapy with your antagonist. I'm thinking of Laurie Stevens right now. And Laurie, I've read all of her work, and Laurie has written a wonderful mystery series. McGee, I think his name is McGee, her detective. And but it's her antagonist who I think shines throughout the novel. She knows her antagonist, her villain, even sometimes better than her detective. And I think that's what enriches her work. That's what enriches her books, is knowing that antagonist. She knows her detective very well. She's had therapy sessions with him. She knows him in and out, but it's that antagonist that is strong in her work. So have you done a therapy session with your antagonist? Who's the villain in your work? What do they want? Same question. Why do they want it? You monster, why do you want to gobble up the city? Serial killers, what do they want? When they go out killing people, it's not for happiness. Some of them do it just for the act of doing it, getting by with it. Most serial killers, I think they're smarter than the police or anybody else. And some of them have very high intelligence. They want to be able to do it and not get caught. That's what motivates them a lot. What in their past causes overall need? That's backstory. Think of your antagonist. What in their past causes overall need? And just jot this down. Even if you think you already know it, just jot it down now, because later on, when you come back and reread your notes or look at your story again, something may peek up from this and go, oh, yeah, I have abused, but abused by who? By his father? His mother? Did he see abuse? And that triggered it? Did he see a cat as roadkill and see it from a different aspect in the inside of the animal instead of the out? And did that trigger something in him, an exploratory aspect of him that made him want to cut apart people? Dexter. His overall need was to take out the bad guys. And his overall past causes because his father recognized it in him, and his aspects of being linked to the dark side, I'll put it that way. And so thus, therefore, he gave him kind of a rule of life to go by in order to saturate his need for that. So what in their past causes overall need? I think as a writer, you have to know that. And what will it give them if they stop the protagonist? What are they willing to risk? What are they willing to risk? Are they willing to risk getting killed themselves? Are they willing to risk getting caught? Are they willing to risk shame, guilt? What are they willing to risk? Their own life? Just like you know your protagonist, you need to know your antagonist just as well. Have therapy sessions with them. And not how tall they are and their descriptions and who their best friends are. And get to know them internally so you can hear your minor themes and your major themes. And then I suggest with all your characters, at least the more prominent characters in the story, I would do the same with them. I would get to know a small therapy. And these therapy sessions don't have to be more than just I have out here. Sometimes, Claire, sometimes I write 5 or 6 chapters to decide who my character's going to be, and then I come back and start doing my therapy sessions. Just like sometimes I write 5 or 6 chapters in order to come back to outline where I'm going to go. because I need to know what it is I wanted to say. I tell my students with their essay writing, sometimes I have to write the first 10 pages and then come back and decide what it is I really wanted to say in this essay. It doesn't always come out right away. All plot is cause and effect. This happened, thus it created these effects. This happened and that created these effects. And this happened and it created these effects. And the protagonist, this happens with the antagonist and with the protagonist. And that happens within the first, I would say your themes are presented to your reader with the first part of your chapters, and that's probably between 1 and 10, if it's a long book, and most of them are pronounced in the first 3 chapters, at least the major one. The protagonist wants a life without drama, but finds a dead body in the backyard. Oh my God! I hate it when that happens. Minor themes already shout out to me. And as I would look at that one sentence, I would hear that life is full of mayhem. Just when you think life is going to go this way, it goes that. And is that a minor theme? And can I play on that in my book? Can I relate to someone else with that in my side? Can I relate to my reader? Till we all think our life is going swell, and then God says, no, it's going too well, and I'm going to throw this little crank in it. And then that produces for Lillian that life is uncontrollable. That while she thinks that she can just go on living life anew and maybe doing different choices, and now she has this discount liquor store. Yes, an alcoholic owning a liquor store. Go figure that. There's a lot of irony in my work. That life is uncontrollable. That you think it's going to go one way and then it's not. That's the same thing with romance books. That's the same thing with hero journeys. That's the same way with Dorothy thought she was going to go off and have a different life because she left home. And she turns out going to a different life because she goes into a fantasy world other than a real world. Fantasy versus reality becomes a theme. Evidence, Kurt Vonnegut, I'm going back to Kurt, good old Kurt. Life is meaningless. How do you talk about war without broaching the subject of life is meaningless? How do you come about meaning of life when you're looking at subjects like war, serial killer? How do you find that life is meaningless? How do you put an answer to that with your reader? And what do you want to talk about? Evidence of the scene points to the protagonist. Evidence at each one of your scenes points to the protagonist, and it presents minor themes. I could think of one I just read not too long ago. That fact doesn't always lead to truth. That you think that just because you found a set of facts that it will lead you to the proof, but it doesn't necessarily do so. Doesn't always, just because we know facts and are able to line them up, does it bring us to the truth? And that's how we apply our red herrings. Yes, we do. And that's how we get to our twists. So when you're looking at your book again, map out your cause and effects. This is the cause. Having his family be destroyed caused Luke Skywalker to take off. And that set him on a journey, a hero's journey. What are yours? What? I don't know how many of you are pantsers and how many of you are outliners. I do a little bit of both. I have a journal. It's with me now. I always have journals with me all the time. Journal. In fact, last night I was writing in my journal about today. I'm constantly thinking about plot. I grabbed this book because this is a great book, by the way. I don't know, is it backwards for you? It's called The 7 Basic Plots, Why We Tell Stories by Christopher Booker. And it's great. It's great. If you think, oh, gee, this is the kind of book I want to write. This is the kind of story I want to write. I want to write a hero's journey. Well, if you haven't studied Joseph Campbell, you might need this to help you. Overcoming the Monster, Dark Vader. I want to put that out. Rags to Riches. The Quest. Voyage and Return. Comedy. Tragedy. Rebirth. How do you put rebirth into your story? Water, of course. Water is always a huge symbol. Put your character, put your protagonist right before they are going off to do something, and they need to make a choice, and have them get soaked by rain, have them fall into water, because water is rebirth and rebirths them. The Dark Tower, Shadow and Light. That's a great book. The 7 Basic Plots. There's also other ones, the 36 different plots of story writing. Frederick Palmer actually wrote I think he did 48 different plots. So know what different plots, because plots help you set up your story. And if you know the type of plot you're doing, then you know the first effects and causes you have. So this is cause, and what is the first effect the protagonist tries for with their coordinate? This is the cause. And in order to get past this cause, this effect happens to it. In order to get this coordinate, they try this, and this first effect is what brings them to the first minor themes. Now I need to think Dorothy. First effect, she tries. Her first thing that she does is she sets out on a journey and runs away from home. And this brings up her first minor themes: reality versus fantasy. It brings about magic, because she runs into the medicine guy, the fortune teller. It brings up those minor themes right away that you can now repeat inside your overall plots. What happens when the antagonist tries to stop her? What happens when the witch tries to stop her? This brings in other minor themes. And this happens really quickly in The Wizard of Oz. What brings in other minor themes? Power. That desire she has for power. Death. The willing to trade her sister for it. Is Dorothy willing to trade her someone for her ability to find happiness? Or does she find, instead of going that way, to help her other characters along the way? Because it's when the scarecrow is set alight on fire that she discovers she wants to help him. Not just talk to him, not just be curious about him. Thwarted but not, Karen, you didn't catch that typo. Thwarted but not undaunted. The protagonist tries again to get their coordinate. When stopped again, this brings in another minor theme. Most stories have at least 3 causes and then effects. Your plot most normally, with a long book, has 5 causes it creates. Deconstruct. Take a book you really like. In fact, I tell students when I teach writing, go for the best, man. Take a list of the Nobel Prize winners: Dostoevsky, Cortese, Green. Take them and read them and deconstruct them. Why are they so great? Why they're great is for not their one book, like Jose Saramago. It's not for blindness. It is for his volume of work. And if you read his volume of work and deconstruct it, you can start seeing what he played with at the very beginning and started to develop and develop and develop and develop and develop. Trying to get to the recording. When stopped again, this brings in another minor theme. Are you starting to repeat your themes? Are you starting to go into your themes? Are you giving your readers something to think about? Themes. What are some theme examples? Good versus evil. Good triumphs evil. Good rewards evil. Good rewards, but evil is punished. Good versus evil. Power corrupts. Good versus evil. Greed, arrogance, madness. Major theme might be good versus evil. Jealousy. Violence, loneliness, survival, guilt. Kurt Vonnegut wrote an anti-war novel called Slaughterhouse Five. And it became the book that all of us kept in our back pocket in the 1960s because it talked about World War II. So it did something different. It didn't talk about Vietnam. It talked about World War II. It talked about World War II, something that we maybe hadn't thought about when we thought about Vietnam. Maybe something other people hadn't thought about with World War II. He brings up things to consider. And he looks at it in an anti-war way. So he's taken a story about war. He's taken a very innocent character like Billy Pilgrim. And he then asks his reader to look at things differently. And he gives us an alien. Slaughterhouse Five. Great. I'm going to read it tonight. It was so good. Universal themes in literature, confrontation with nature, struggle towards understanding, awareness, or spiritual enlightenment, conflict between human and machine. I taught logical argument for 20 years. Logical argument is exactly what it says. It's writing logically. And it's how lawyers are required to write when they write out their dissertations or when they're writing their arguments. They have to be logical without fallacy. Now, I teach my students, of course, that if you can get by with a little fallacy without your readers actually seeing it, i.e. red herrings, which is a fallacy, then you become a really good writer. It's not to put out blatantly a red herring. It's to put it in there so carefully that the reader is not even sure it's not evidence or it's not what will further the protagonist, or it's not part of their core need or one of their minor themes. That it's carefully placed in there. With my classes, I didn't want to just teach writing. Instead, my class was about the conflict between human and machine, and we argued the aspects of technology versus humanity in the class. That's all we did. Human struggle, clash, conflict, confrontation, conflict. Conflict with lack of humanity. Clash between appearances and reality. Impact of the past on the present. Definitely with Lillian, that theme is in there. Impact on the past on the present. Do you know universal themes? And why are they called universal themes? because universal themes means that whoever's reading this book has had some aspect of this in their life. Universal things means it's all about humanity. It's about being human. All of us have lives that go in one direction, and then suddenly something happens and we find ourselves going in a totally different direction. All of us want to have a different kind of life. We want to get away from our addictions. We want to live life anew without knowing what that means, and therefore we have to discover that. All of us want happiness. How many of you think that you have a right for happiness? You don't. There's nothing out there that says that you're guaranteed happiness. The Quran doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't say that. It doesn't say that you're guaranteed happiness. And the Constitution doesn't say that. It just says you have the pursuit, the ability to pursue happiness. Knowing those human frailties we all have and able to link into them with our major and minor themes causes the reader to identify more with our story, more with our protagonists, more with our antagonists, more with even some of our minor characters, so that they're rooting along with them, or they're understanding. How many of you read a serial killer and understood him? I understood Dexter. Oh my God. And while he may have been killing someone, oh my God, I understood why. And I wanted to kill him too. Or my husband won't let me have it done. No blacks in our house. Sometimes we identify with the antagonist. Sometimes we identify with the protagonist. Sometimes we identify with the characters. We think if just I could understand it greater, if just I had the intellect to actually see it and understand it greater, my life would be much better. That just if my heart were bigger, if just I knew how to sacrifice more, if just that I was a more ethical person, if just that I would have a better life. And nothing would happen to me. Nothing bad would happen to me. Just if I had the courage. Just if I had the courage. Glenda, the dead witch. You know, if just I looked at being good, and I could distinguish between good and evil, then my life would go swimmingly. Just if I didn't want power, oh my God, just if I didn't want power, if just I didn't want that damn bestseller, I really don't. I'm too old to have a bestseller. I don't have a lifetime to do that. But if I just could get that, for me, it's if I could just leave a volume of work. If I could just leave a volume of work, or if I, in the classroom, as I stated a goal for myself every time I had a class. And by the way, every class, every time I started a new semester, I wrote new class goals for myself. I encouraged my students to write class goals for themselves, so that we all started out with having a clear concept of where we wanted to go. Back to those goals, aren't I? So right now, let's write yours. Why not? I have time. Do I have time? I have time. Good. So I want you to write some goals. So take out your piece of paper and think of your novel, or think of your writing career. Think of whatever you want to do. Think of your goals. You're going to write your goals for that. What do you want? What do you want with this book? What do you want to have happen with this book? What is it you want? Some of my students put just, I want an A. It's fine. That's what you want. With my goals as a professor, it might be just to have them stay awake. That's what I want. Maybe to hear what I had to say. What issue you want? Don't overthink it. Listen to that muse. Listen to your head. Your head knows more than you do. Let it speak. And write down 4 things that you think you want with this new project you're writing on. We're going to take advantage of. What is it that you want? What is it you wish to experience during the writing of it? I wanted to experience the ability to, I want to experience sharing with you and not being overly prepared. I hate being overly prepared for lectures because sometimes I miss out on really what I wanted to say. So what is it you wanted to experience? Maybe sometimes I want to experience, I want to experience developing my craft more. I want to experience deconstructing what that feels like. I want to experience a therapy session. I want to experience, what is it you wish to experience? I want to experience what it might mean to touch a reader. Write down the 4 things you hope to experience during this writing project you're going to be setting yourself on. And hell, if you want to be a bestseller, put it in the one list. Nothing wrong with it. Three, when I write goals, I have to give myself guidelines. What are the guidelines you're willing to set in order to get what you want and to experience what you want? What are the guidelines you're willing to set for yourself? The guideline might be that you're willing to deconstruct. The guideline might be you're willing to read 5 novels in the same type of book that you're attempting to read. The guideline might be, what are the guidelines you're going to give yourself in order to get what you want, in order to have your experience? And I hope this feels strange for all of you. It doesn't feel strange for me because I write goals all the time. And I taught them to presidents of computer companies, to presidents of Merrill Incorporated, Directors Guild. I taught goal writing there. They were one of my clients. 4, I commit. What do you commit to? With this writing project you're taking on, what do you commit to? I commit to writing 2 hours a day. I commit to writing 4 hours. I commit to, and I'm trying to think who it is that told me this in one of his interviews I did. He said that he reads the last 20 pages he wrote, and he commits to 500 new words a day. That's what he commits to. What do you commit to? Do you commit to 1,000 words a day? 500 words? Name 4 things that you are willing to commit to in order to get what it is you want and what it is you wish to experience and how to keep to your guidelines. What do you commit to that? Maybe for you, if you wanted to use as a guideline that you wanted to read books in the area that you're going to be writing in, that you would want to I'm going to commit to deconstructing each of those books before I actually start on mine. Or maybe as I'm outlining mine, I deconstruct theirs. I'm still trying to write a Nora Roberts plot where I start a story, end it by chapter 2 or 3, and then start a new story all over again. That incorporates that at the end. I want to do that. It was different. I want to do what Kurt Vonnegut does when he starts out a character in one way and then twist it, have his character go this way, and have his character then twist and go this way, which produces his twists. I want to do that. Knowing literature, knowing good literature, helps you do that. And good literature is to the eye of the beholder. I always say good literature, some people say The Great Gatsby is the greatest book ever written. I say it's Huckleberry Finn. But some people, rags to riches, think Great Gatsby is, yes. It wasn't during its time. People hated that book. Absolutely hated. They said it would never publish, that it was a horrible book, and he was not a writer and you should get that up. It wasn't until World War II when the pocketbook came around and they made the little paperback book to put into the soldiers' pockets to give them something to do while they were waiting in the trenches. They were able to read. And one of those books was The Great Gatsby. And it wasn't until those soldiers came home and told other people, you should read this. It's really, really good. I saw myself in this book. I saw myself winning this life and didn't see the tragedy of what that life could be like. You should read this. Then it became a great seller. He only made $4,000 in his whole lifetime on this book, The Great Gatsby. And yet some hold it as the epitome of great writing. That's the greatest American novel ever written. What are your commitments? Name 4. And then, I want you to write, it seems silly, yes, I know, but remember I had you holding that pen in your different hand and it didn't feel real well. So, I want you to write out, I commit to the above goals for writing this novel on da-da-da-da, or writing this newest novel, or writing this, working on this new writing project. I commit to the above goals. And then sign your name to that. Now, this is very important. Why is it so important? Because it imprints that contract you've made with yourself on your psyche. By putting it in writing, it imprints it on your psyche. So when you see yourself faltering and not doing those 500 words a day, doing those 1,000, you go, oh my God, yes, I remember I committed to 1,000 words a day. And look, I wrote 20 today. So I have to sit at my computer until I do. That's what I committed in order to get what I want, in order to get what I wanted to experience, in order to follow this guideline. And if we were in class, and we're not, but if we were in class, I would have you take these goals, and the magic of this era is magic, is to read your goals to another person. Because by reading them to another person, you have purged yourself of your humanity. You have purged yourself of your inadequacies. You have become honest with yourself to another human being. And by doing that, they become even more psychologically endearing to you. Ta-da! But we're not going to do that. Instead, I'm getting close here to the end. I want you to take that piece of paper you have and let's do a therapy session. Now, I don't care who you do it with. Do it with your antagonist. Do it with your protagonist. Do it with yourself. I don't care. I don't care who you do it with. But I want you to put their name on the top of the sheet somewhere. And if this, I would have it inside. I do. I would have it inside my manual, in my journal. By the way, I created a new journal with each novel I have, so that this would be my newest book coming out, which is the Lily and Dove #5, without a doubt. But I have Into the Storm with a journal with it. I have 4 or 5 journals all around the house, and sometimes I have to comprise them back into this one because I hear different things when I'm washing dishes or cooking dinner or sitting with the dog. Sometimes I have an epiphany when I'm watching a movie or hearing a story out there. So put it somewhere where you can go back and read it. Same with those goals. Put them where you can see them. Paste them up on top of your computer. Put it up on your wall. So you're constantly reminding yourself where you were. And feel free to change them. People, nothing is in blood. Change them if you need to. If you can't commit to 500 words a day, commit to 100 words a day. No one is checking you. You're not going to be a bad girl or a bad boy. Back to therapy. See, I can get tangented off. Therapy session. First one. Why is this character in your story? Why is your character in the story? I have time, so I have an interesting little thing about Lily and Dove. I knew I wanted to write a mystery series because all my friends were. And I had published my first poem when I was 12. So I started it with poetry like all romantic girls do. I started with poetry, published in literary journals. I went then to short story and essays in literary journals. That's all the time I had for. When I started to write, because I was in business and working 60-hour weeks, when I started writing novels, I had no time to do much with them, so I put them in the closet. I'd get done with one, put it in the closet, get done with one, put it in the closet, because I think you need to write your first 10 before you can write your first good one. And now I can pull some of those out, which is always good and fun, which I did with Into the Storm. I pulled it out from in my closet, then rewrote it. Why is your character in the story? Lillian became Lillian Dove because my father had a sister whose name was Lillian. And my older sister and I were talking one time, and I said, who do I take after? Because I don't take after anybody in our family. I don't. They've all told me that. We think you were adopted. I don't take after anybody in our family except for maybe my grandfather, who was a vaudevillian. And I do have that acting and creating type of stuff into me. So who did I take after? And my sister said, well, I don't think you look like her, but you always reminded me of Aunt Lillian. Now, my sister was 14 years older than I was, so I didn't know this Aunt Lillian. She was speaking of, Aunt Lillian, who's Aunt Lillian? And she said she was the dad's sister who he never wanted you to be like. He always was worried about you, where you worked and what you did and you managed. She was an alcoholic. And she spent most of her time at bars after work. And she was a drunk. And Dad was ashamed of her. And he estranged her out of his life. My dad had spent 30 years without seeing his sister because he thought that her alcoholism was shameful and that a woman going into a bar was a slut or a whore. And that was the only reason she was there. Now, I have no problem understanding my father. 1950s, 1940s kind of guy, that was where his mindset was. I'm sorry he didn't get to know her. And he died without ever seeing a kid. But I wanted to know her. If I was like her, I wanted to know her. So why is she in my story? I started thinking about how today, with addictions, we talk about them without, I have an addiction to chocolate. I have an addiction to drinking Coke. I have an addiction. We talk about addictions as if it's like no big deal anymore. We understand addictive behaviors a lot better. We understand addictions and how they're caused and what they do to society and to the person. And so I had an understanding of Mormons, of how they believe that they can save an ancestor even after that ancestor's passed away through prayer, retribution, etc. I decided that if they could do that, then I could give Lillian sobriety. I was going to take my Aunt Lillian, and I was going to make her a character, and I was going to give her sobriety. That was my first cause, which created the effect of her living life anew. What happens when you've been drinking from your alcoholic father's bottle since you were 12? just sips maybe at the beginning to take away the hurt or the angst you had with your mother, and or feeling that life was doing you in because you didn't have what other kids had, et cetera, et cetera. And I decided to give her sobriety. And by doing that, she takes steps to take life in order to have happiness. What's your characters? So why is your character in the story? Do you have a reason why you came up with them? How they got there? Write it down now. Because if you're like me, you'll forget later. What's their personality type? Are they shy? Are they adventuresome? Lillian just kind of jumps into things. And she's very contrary. She's very contrary. If you told her not to go someplace, she'd want to do it. Kind of like me. You told her not to do something, then she'd want to do it. So what's her personality type? What's their personality type? And here we come back to, what is their core need? What is their core need in this story or in the series? The core need of Lillian is core need for Lillian is wanting to live life anew. She wants to live life anew in order to find happiness. And she finds that brings her all sorts of different choices and different things happen to her. So maybe you have a core need in this one story. I do. In each one of my stories, there's a different core need in each one of them. And in the series, what's the overall core need? You write them down. Ask your protagonist or antagonist you're talking to, what's their core need? Backstory. What is their greatest fear? And who or what caused the fear? Lillian's greatest fear is going back to her old ways of life, of not being loved. So yeah, these are all creating those themes. Her greatest fear is her mother not being loved. And what caused this great fear with her mother is her mother had 3 children. Lillian was the oldest. She had her alcoholic husband, man with a drinking problem, who came home from the bar every night and didn't always make it into the house. Sometimes he passed out on the floor. And her mother, Dahlia, would wake up Lillian to help her get him into the house. And Lillian always thought it was so the neighbors wouldn't see the shame of the father. Actually, it wasn't that at all. She was just taking care of him. She thought that was her responsibility, to take care of him. And she loved him. What is hers or his misbelief about the world? Nobody else has any of these problems. Nobody else. Everybody has a perfect life. That's what Lillian thinks. Everybody else lives a perfect life. But she's the only one who had any and all these things. So we all feel that way. So well, how am I going to touch someone else just with that itself? That we all think like that we're the only one who has these kind of problems. That everybody else has a perfect life. Everybody thought Trump had a perfect life. And what happened in the character's past to create this misbelief? And what happens in Lillian's past is that she always sees it from other people's aspects of how they're looking at her, not how she's looking at it. So she always thought that other people looked at her with shame. She always thought people fixated on her father and saw him as a bad person. She always thought, right? That's how it happened in her life. Create this misbelief. Is she was looking with her perspective on the outside. She wasn't seeing how other people were looking at her. Now, Dahlia looked at her with someone to help her because she can't count on her. someone who was afraid all the time. How did she look at her? I know you haven't read the Lily and Dove series, and I welcome you to do so, by the way, if you email me. I'm happy to gift you with the first book in the series. Just email me and say, Diane, send me the book. DJ. What are the top 3 things that your character values most in life? What are the top 3 things? I think with Dahlia, it's her dignity. I think with Dahlia, she values more its truth, justice. And what is she willing to give up in order to achieve this core need? She's willing to give up love, or that sense of love that we all romantically perceive because of reading books and reading the stories. She's willing to give up being right all the time. She's willing to give up. What is your character willing to give up? She jumps into things. She's willing to give up being right in order to learn. What is your character? See, I can think of all these minor things start coming out as I start asking myself these questions. What? And if I haven't given you enough time to answer some of these, don't worry, because Karen and Claire, etc., are going to send you out a handout that I made up that kind of summarizes all of these things. And I've placed in there a therapy session model that you might want to use. Summary. It is almost 2:30, and I want to give time for questions. And don't expect answers that are reliable. Summary. Themes are the glue that hold the story together. Themes are the glue that hold the story together. Themes are the glue that hold the story. Think of the Wizard of Oz. If you didn't have the witches, if you didn't have the 3 different ways of looking at happiness, intellectual, courage, etc., if you didn't have those, the magic, if you didn't have those, what holds that story together? It is what holds the story together. So, Diane, how do you come about, DJ? How do you come about your themes? I actually start with mine. My story, it didn't start with that at the very beginning of my writing, but now I tend to start with the themes. What I want to talk about, how I want to present my story at the very beginning. And it's how I start outlining it. And with Into the Storm, which is, Into the Storm, by the way, is a crime novel. It's a crime novel with a paranormal twist. I wanted to take the word alien. I wanted to take that word, alien, and I wanted to stretch it in different ways. I wanted to take it and look at it in different ways as perceptions that we all have of the word. I could look at alien as an immigrant. And I do that in the story. When I have a cabin in the woods that has been involved in sex trafficking and using immigrant girls with this kind of guys club going on. Alien is immigrant. I use it in my plot. Alien as a deviation in belief. I use that in my plot and my themes. Alienation as deviation in belief. That we may believe in something one way, but then we can be given a different different analysis, we can give a different picture of it and then start believing it in a different way. Such as you may not believe a ghost until you've seen one. So, as a deviation in belief, alien is something different than the considered norm. Different realities. This whole book asks you to kind of ask the reader to kind of jolt their perspective on how they see that word alien. So I have alien as immigrants. I have alien deviation from beliefs. In this book, the crowd, most of the crowd that goes kind of crazy and mad, look at this boy who has physical challenges. They look at him as being something abject to the norm. And they believe if you are abject to the norm, that makes you something fearful. Alien is something different from the considered norm. That if you believe in reality, that you might not believe in paranormal. The Sheriff Boggs says if he can't see it, he doesn't believe in it. Well, you may not be able to see your own consciousness, but you believe in those conscious thoughts, unconscious thoughts you have. Alien as possibly not from this world. And that's the fun part of the story, because I have an alien story. I'm not going to tell you who that alien is. That's all part of the crime that has. So I have dueling police in this. I have a Sheriff Boggs and I have a city policeman who are both power. Especially the city policeman has power. A crime happens. Things are going on in the story. And I'm looking at the word alien throughout all of those causes. I did the same thing with my latest, with A Vengeance. I think I've been doing it all the time in the stories, but I really took it and worked the same craft, because this is the craft I'm working on right now. I wanted to take the word vengeance, and I wanted to define the word not always in the same way. So vengeance to most people means revenge. You know, you're bitter and you're hurt, and I just want revenge. And one of the characters, that's definitely them. Wanting fulfillment, that you're vengeful because life for you never turned out this way, so you want to revenge that life that you've been given. And then wanting to take on life, and in a way we'd never think, with a vengeance. Taking that word, vengeance, and turning it upside down and making it that we're going to really leap for it and grab it. And that's Lillian. I think I'm done. I'm tired of listening to me. You're probably tired of listening to me.
That was wonderful.
Questions?
I have 3 questions, and I think Claire's going to make it so we can see everybody in case somebody wants to chime in. But the first question is there a difference between quest and journey?
Yes. Quest, you're looking to actually get something at the end, grab it at the end. The Knights of Templar, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, they wanted that quest. They wanted to get that power. They wanted to get the Ark. Yeah. So you're actually going for something physical. With the journey, it can be a lot psychological, philosophical. It's a different kind of story.
Great. Another question is the hero's journey only found in science fiction fantasy?
No. Not at all. Not at all. Age of Innocence kind of story is like, can be written as a hero's journey. So, no, it's how you set up the plot points for it to go. So I would say, definitely grab basic plots, definitely go hero's journey. Pick up Joseph Campbell. All of you know Joseph Campbell, right? Hero's journey is also a part of Star Wars. That's how he began writing the Star Wars movie. So the hero's journey is really book 1 of the story. We all started with book 6.
Another question is, when you do your therapy sessions, with your characters, do you create a list of questions to ask?
It depends on how long you've been doing this. I'm old. I can usually hear and see my characters. I don't know how many of you can do that. How many can you see and hear your characters? My family thinks I'm weird. Oh, good. Marianne, I got you waving your hand there. You can actually see a little special, aren't you, Marianne, huh? Yeah, a little sensitive, aren't you? You see ghosts too, Marianne? Oh, it's too bad. I do. So Lillian is with me in the room when I write Lillian. She's probably one of my strongest characters, and maybe it's because I have now going on 5 books with her. And she was my aunt. Yes, even though she's nothing, I never met my aunt, ever. But it's this imaginary aunt I've created. And she is generally in there talking with me. But she'll talk to me when I'm in bed. That's really when you should all have a journal by your bed. How many of you have a journal by your bed? Marianne, you have a journal by your bed? Oh, good Lordy, girl, get that journal out. Because that's when some of my thoughts come to me. I remember I used to drive an awful lot. I used to commute 2 hours a day to when I was working in business, sales and marketing. The commercial publisher I worked for was 2 hours away. And so in the mornings, I would write for 3 or 4 hours. I'd get up early and write. And then I'd go off to work. And this was sometimes before phones and even with phones, and my staff calling me all the time. But I used to have a journal right by my passenger thing in the car. And sometimes I would be driving and writing at the same time, because that's when I would hear characters. I know, it's lucky I'm alive. That's how I'd hear characters. I would hear them as I drove, because having that quiet time, bathtub is another good place. Yeah, so there's always a journal in my bathtub. So that's when I sometimes get quiet enough that I can hear. If you aren't hearing your client, your customers, if you aren't hearing your characters, then it's because you've got too much going on in your head. Take a walk. Did you all know in Spanish, I'm Southern now, did you all know that Steinbeck, John, number one, he was a terrible speller like me. Karen knows that. She was constantly correcting my spelling. He was a terrible speller, but he had an editor that worked 6 months with him on his stuff. John Steinbeck used to go out and cut wood before he would ever write. He would go out and cut wood outside and do his chores before he'd ever write. Especially cutting wood was a thing for him, and allow him to clear his mind before he sat down to write.
Wow,
Hey, DJ. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. Were there any other questions, Karen?
There was one person you had referred to Nora Roberts a couple times. Was there a particular book by Nora Roberts that you were referring to?
I think it's towards the middle of her series. No, it's really towards it's really, that's to tell me to shut up. I have it in class too. You'll see it when she, it's in the middle of her series. You'll see her do a different plot change, with her work. And if I looked at her work, I could probably tell you this book you should really look at. So email me. But she starts it where she solves. It seems like she solves the whole story by page 5. And you're going, am I done? Was this a short story? And then she starts again with a whole new character, a whole new place, and etc. And you're going, oh my God, because you could come back to that. And it's only when you deconstruct and read the whole thing that you see it. It's only when you deconstruct that you see the author using setting, not as a geographic, but as a psychological element. How many of you think setting is psychological? And what kind of story would you use that with? I like to teach setting too. I'll grab one.
It'll be okay for folks to email you to get the name of that Nora Roberts book, and then also.
If they didn't, I would be totally upset with her. This is my Lillian Dove series. It's probably backwards to you. At Midnight Mayhem, and I'm on 5. That's my start, and I'm very happy to give to anybody. If you want to email me, I'll give you a link to how to get it free of charge. So feel free to do that. By the way, it's on Kindle Unlimited too, if you've ever read it. If you read it, let me know what you liked and what you didn't like, so I do better. Because that's what it's all about, right? That's what we teach. When you teach literature, that's what you're teaching your students, what was good and what was bad about anybody out there, even some of the greats like Green or Dostoevsky. What was good about this book and what was bad about this book? Into the Storm was the one where I took Alien. And this book is wide, so you can find it most everywhere. And it's where I decided to write a crime novel, but I wanted to go deeper than just the crime. Instead, I did that by looking at the word alien and stretching it out in as many ways as I could.
Fantastic. Well, we cannot thank you enough for your time and
My pleasure.
looking at the chat, people are taking so many things away from this afternoon as far as inspiration and new techniques and definitely questions to ask your characters and about your plot, all of those kinds of things.
And please email me what you would like me to, I ask this with every time I give the presentation. Let me know what you want me to expand upon or what you don't want me to talk about, although I bring up my stories all the time. So, but what you would like me to expand upon, I'm happy to do that with and incorporate it into my presentations. My email address, if you don't know it again, is DJ Dog Junk DJ at DJ Adamson, all one word, .com. And it's going to be on the handout that Karen or Claire are going to be sending all of you.
Yes.
If you don't get one, email me and I'll send it to you. Happy to.
Well, thank you.
My website and look at Le Coeur d'Artiste by magazine. I just was bragging that I have to James and I have 6,000 readers now, and I've had 5,000 for 4 years now, or have been constant readers. So I'm very proud of my magazine.